Again, the referendum is over. The two regions have voted overwhelmingly in favor of independence. This as the legitimacy of the entire vote is being questioned. So what happens next? For some answers, Job Henning joins our discussion. He is a fellow with the Truman Project. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Elaine. Good to be here.
First of all, I want to get your reaction to the referendum.
Well, obviously, it was a hastily organized vote under very chaotic circumstances. It's not recognized by anybody outside of those two self-proclaimed provinces. I don't think it was meant to be recognized by anybody, so I think that's important to recognize the motives of some of the actors involved. I think from the Russian perspective, at least from President Putin's perspective, to the extent you can do anything to sow doubt on the idea of some sort of autonomous identity or what people actually want in that region, that serves a purpose. And it's not that the vote has to be recognized to serve that purpose. He's already using this to a certain effect, saying, okay, now we're ready for dialogue with Kiev.
Well, you were here just a few weeks ago, and you said that the May election was in jeopardy and that it would be risky to hold it. Do you still feel that way? And how do the results of that referendum will affect what will happen on May 25th?
Well, I do still feel that way, and I guess I'll have to confess a certain amount of confusion myself looking at the continued demands by Western leaders to have those elections, sort of cryptic references here to the end of this counterterrorism operation. If the Kiev government were serious about holding itself together as a sovereign state, it would have been present in those areas and done something to prevent or visibly be present to try to inhibit that referendum from taking place. After all, it was a separatist referendum. It was about separating from the sovereign state of Ukraine. To launch an activity now, an operation now, and to expect in 2 weeks' time to hold a national election seems incredibly unlikely to me, and really a bad idea, because the main idea of the election is to confer some sort of legitimacy on the government in Kiev, which it does not have, having the power as it did in the Maidan process. But it's not going to have that legitimacy if you have an election where vast parts of the country or significant parts of the country are not able to participate. And if there's any sort of idea that it's not a free and fair election, people will doubt it as a legitimate leader, doubt the leadership of the outcome of that election.
Right, and that's the question that everyone wants to know. What happens following that May 25th election? No one's recognizing anything at this point. That doesn't necessarily mean that an election will change that. I mean, could it be worse?
Well, you do have some good things happening. And I think it's important to recognize what the German foreign minister continues to do under OSCE, OSCE being this 54-state member organization, the only organization that can really bring together all the parties in a conversation. They're trying to go back to Geneva. It's hard to do given the fact nobody honored what was agreed to at the last Geneva agreement. But to the extent there's an interest in a dialogue about the future of Ukraine, that's the place to have it. I think the trick is, how do you do that with the referendum already having happened? Do you recognize those self-proclaimed republics inside of that negotiating process? My guess is they'll find a way to incorporate them, but not directly as a result of the referendum, but more in the context of different parties. I think that political process is the right way to go, and I think there's a lot that can be done there. But I think trying to force that process in the context of a national election in 2 weeks' time just doesn't make any sense to me. I think if anything, having a longer political process that recognized they need a little more time to have a meaningful national election, and then maybe postpone that for a few weeks' time or a few months' time.
Could that happen? Could they say, we'll postpone it for the better of this country, or do you think it's just...
I think it could. I think it should. But as you see, a lot of Western leaders continue to press for this election on May 25th. There's a lot of angst about the fact that you have an interim government still 7 months later that doesn't have any legitimacy. So it's understandable why the pressure is there to have the election. But if the election is not possible, if it's not possible to have an election that's going to create legitimacy that everyone needs, then it's probably a good idea to think about other options.
All right, Job Henning, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us again here on the show.
Thanks for having me.